Everybody, we have made it to the last talk of this year. My brain is shot at this point. I can't even go there. This is the last conference session. Let's put it that way. All right, and we've got Mandy from Black Hive Media. I met Mandy through the AT&T Unlock Challenge that she was a finalist in last year, and she's been kind enough to come and give us now a post-mortem on basically how to launch an Xbox game during a pandemic. So, Mandy, I'm going to let you take it away. If you've got questions, pop them in chat. We will get them answered after the presentation. And with that, I'm going to hide and let you run the show for a bit, Mandy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right. Hi, everyone. So yeah, this is, like Jay said, a post-mortem to pivoting and launching an indie Xbox game during the pandemic. I think we can all relate that the past almost 20 months has been pretty exhausting. And during that time, we've personally gone through a lot, adoption, layoffs, and launching our Xbox game. And so in this conversation, I want to kind of go over some of those things. Pivoting our game design to work during lockdown. Originally, it was meant to be a local multiplayer game. Dealing with this mental stress and the personal battles that we handled. All the different tools that we used. Integrating platform-specific features on Xbox. Working with ID at Xbox on approval and launch. Where we went wrong. How we got rejected a few times, and getting our community involved, as as small of a community as it is, planning a roadmap, and keeping up with our game as a service, and last but not least, marketing, which is always an uphill battle. So I'm Mandy Lowry. I'm the co-founder and software engineer at Black Hive Media. I'm also a Microsoft Game Stack ambassador, which is a new program that they've just started. And I am also a coffee lover, always have that in hand, DIYer and gamer. I'm also a self-taught programmer. Back in 2009, which I'll get into some of this later, I was working in a completely different industry. I was in finance. And my husband actually mentioned about getting into programming, as he was already in the game industry as an artist. So I went that route, and here we are today. Currently, I'm working in Unity as we add features to our latest Xbox game, Alpha Link. I'm also working part-time at an Austin game studio called Fard Bridge on an unannounced title in Unreal. So let's see here. So Black Hive Media is the company that my husband and I started back in 2009 as a side business making mobile apps and games when the mobile industry was really just getting started. Mobile gaming industry was really just getting started with iOS. In 2011, we made and released a freemium mobile game titled Arcade Jumper that reached nearly 500,000 users. And over the years, our company has taken on different development contracts from indie companies like Aspire Media, a few startups, some local, some in Silicon Valley, a rather large Silicon Valley company, Google, and a few high-profile entrepreneurs, like one that runs a fashion line in LA. So that's kind of where we are. So our game Alpha Link started strictly as a local game looking to provide a multiplayer experience with a group of friends on the same couch. This made sense in a time when we took for granted things like gaming events, esports, and just being in person with family and friends. In fact, Alpha Link's first debut was at an esports bar, Valhalla Lounge, located in Austin, Texas, and that's where we are now. There was a competition of indie games on display, which people could cast their vote for their favorite title that they played. Alpha Link won Best in Show for the night, and everything seemed like it was on the right track. Everything seemed validated to what we were doing. And then fast forward a month, and the pandemic was suddenly in full stride. Everything was getting canceled or delayed. All of the events that we were scheduled to show at were also getting canceled. And for a title that was pretty much banking on in-person feedback and that couch competitive experience, a major shift had to be put in place, whether we liked it or not. We knew undertaking online, making it an online multiplayer, would be a huge task, but it actually turned out to be even bigger than we originally planned. And now a full back end was required to track every movement and interaction on the screen in sync in real time for everyone, which is challenging because it's a 2D game, so everyone sees everything at the same time. With this new functionality that we quickly got prototyped and working, we put together designs for a progression system, including like XP, in-game currency, cosmetics, all those things. But yeah, so it originally just started as a local game. So life came at us real fast. In early 2020, like I said, a lot changed for us, a lot changed for everyone. We were in the process of adopting our son. We were working full time with a company, a startup in Silicon Valley. And, you know, we had shifted our company's direction slightly. So we were originally, you know, working on our titles, but then they came along and seemed like a good fit. So we kind of changed directions with them, and everything looked really bright. Unfortunately, out of the blue, just 6 months after, you know, we closed down our local studio and everything to work with them, they laid us off suddenly. They pivoted the company, and we were suddenly both left without jobs. So here we are at the start of the pandemic. We had just started the adoption process with our son, and we were jobless. And to add insult to injury, prior to the new jobs, we had unloaded all of our contract work, our contractors, and our physical office to work with this small startup. So we did what we knew best, and we picked up the pieces, and we went full on Alpha Link. In this slide here, kind of, there's a lot more details to that story than I'm putting on right now. Vice actually did an article about the whole drama of that, so you can check that out if that's something you're privy to. So after all of that said and done, this is what Alpha Link became. It became an online and local multiplayer, and we added a lot of progression, cosmetics. We added an online store, where you can buy all types of different things, helmets, suits, what have you. We also added a lot more different types of game modes that you could play. 5 different modes. We added 3 different biomes with 20 different layouts. We added a whole story mode and a lot of lore, because this game is actually based off a game that we originally started, Metroidvania, named Kova. And the reason we were able to get this game up and running so quickly was we kind of pivoted off of that, and so we had a lot of baseline for it already. And then we also had a lot of, like I mentioned, progression and faction competition. Let's see here. So some of the tools that we used. Because we wanted to get something up and running quickly, we utilized services that were already available, proven and tested, which allowed us to get Alpha Link out the door quickly. We've been using Unity in client projects since 2015. So it made sense for us to use what we knew for this game. And being an indie developer, we knew we didn't have the time or resources to create our own backend service to handle all of the saving and multiplayer and all this. So for that, we did choose Playfab and Photon. And you can kind of see here, this is an online match about to start with different players from, right now we're pretty global. We're in all markets on Xbox right now. So obviously we used Unity, and like I mentioned earlier, we had a previous project already started, so we used that as a jumping off point. So we already had kind of our control scheme set up. We had a lot of assets already that we could reuse for this arena shooter. We also used a lot of the same assets off the Unity asset store for like our terrains and some of our weapons and effects and particle systems, things like that. And then obviously we had published other games before with Photon and Playfab, so this all allowed us to kind of stick with what we knew. And not to mention Unity has libraries already for Xbox, which is the XDK. So yeah, we used Photon for our multiplayer. Since then, Playfab has a service like this as well that we plan to transition to. But for the time being, we use Photon for all of our player movement over the server, setting up lobbies and rooms for matchmaking, and whenever you're in a match, you are randomly selected into a room, a mode type, and a type of biome and a layout. So we send all of that over Photon as well right before the game starts, so everyone loads into the exact same match and they can all see the exact same thing. And then there's always a countdown right before a match begins, so all of that's handled over the server as well, so everyone's completely synced up. And then at the end of the game, we also use Photon to pass all of the game scores so that ranking and places are all set and synced at the same time as well. So for Playfab, we use this for player saves. So every time a player changes options, that saves to their profile. Their profile is synced with their Xbox account. And then, whatever XP they've earned, how many credits they've earned, all of that is synced to their profile. Their current settings for their player, their loadout for the helmet, the weapons, the suit, the armor, everything is all saved on their player profile on Playfab. And then, we also have our store, our economy, set up on Playfab. So we have how every asset that you can purchase with in-game credits. It's not like in-app purchases or any type of real money. It's everything earned in-game. But we have amounts stored for how much each thing costs. Each helmet, armor, weapon is also limited based on your XP level, so that's also stored on Playfab. And then we also have a few different leaderboards because our game has 3 different factions. We have IAA, Triodine, and Ominous that we're pitting against each other. We have 3 different leaderboards for that. We have leaderboards for overall faction standings. We have it for each planet, which is each biome in our game. And having all of those leaderboards allowed us to pull in that data in the game, and so you can see it real time as it's happening. And then we also store a lot of our game data. So how many points it takes to get to a certain level. We have all of that stored on Playfab as well, so that way, we we're not storing it in the game. We can quickly change things, or just prevent it from being hacked. Not that anyone would hack that, but players are crafty. Let's see here. We also store our game news on Playfab. So we have different characters that you can walk up to in our hub before you launch into a multiplayer battle. And each of those, not only the game news is stored on Playfab, but the NPC's dialogue are also stored on Playfab. So we've been able to do some fun things with that. Let's see here. Next, once we had all of that done, we were testing it constantly we already had our dev kits. So we were running tests locally here. We were running tests online with different users, mostly friends and family. And, everything seemed to be working on the dev kits. So that at that point, we felt like we were ready to go ahead and add in the XDK from Xbox. And so this was our first console game. Before, we were easily in the rhythm of quickly prototyping, developing, self-publishing games to like the mobile app stores. But console platforms are way more strict. So this felt like we knew it was going to be a big deal to eventually integrate this XDK and get through approval. And it was. So working with the XDK in Unity, as an approved Xbox game dev, we gained access to the XDK, we gained access to the developer forums on ID at Xbox, and the hidden forums in the Unity threads as well. And that pretty much gave us a lot of resources. There have been so many questions asked on there, so many questions answered. So almost everything that I came across integrating those things, I was able to easily search and find answers for. And I will say also the ID at Xbox developer forums, though the folks there are super helpful, and it's been nothing but a great experience there. They really dig in and help you, and they want your game to launch, so they will do what it takes to help you out. One of the big things with one of the big requirements Xbox has is online invites if your game is an online multiplayer. We didn't know this going in. We thought, okay, well, we have Playfab and Photon handling all this. So, once we launch, we'll add that feature later. We just need to get to launch. Well, not the case. So online invites, there's a few different components to that. The first one is inviting friends to your game lobby. And then also that person has to accept that invite request and then immediately launch you into the same game lobby. And then also if you're just playing an online match, that has to be open for a see that, hey, you're in Alpha Link playing an online match. Let me just jump in and join your lobby. So those three different components probably took the most time out of all of the things we did with the XDK. There were a lot of unknowns on my end with doing those things, and it was just the first time I had ever implemented this type of SDK. So beyond that, once we got all that set up, we then ran into some performance issues. Again, we were able to post on the forums and work with some of the folks there to help me understand picks, which is really useful for profiling your Xbox and Windows games. So, with that said, here's kind of a little timeline of of where we started. And I will say that the ID at Xbox team is truly amazing. Everyone there is really nice. They want to get your game out. They want to help you through it. And like I said, it's a long road, but the resources are there. And originally we submitted for approval at ID at Xbox in February of last year, right before the pandemic hit. And then I think we were approved within, I want to say 30, maybe 45 days. It's pretty nice. Yeah, 30 days or so. And then fast forward to July of this year, we finally submitted our release candidate. This game was in development for about 16 months or so. And then in August, by the time, they would have a pretty quick turnaround, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It definitely takes at least 2 months to get your game ready. But we were rejected 4 times. The first time we were rejected was probably one of the biggest issues, which was the thermal shutdown that some console variations were having when you could first interact in our game. And it was a very bizarre case and it wasn't easily reproducible because they could only get it to work on one of the Xboxes that they were testing on, not even all of them, and not even all the time either. So this goes back to working in PIX and working with the folks at the Xbox forums. They were able to kind of help me understand PIX, profile it on the dev kits, and figure out there was a shader issue. Once we removed that shader, thermal shutdown was fixed and performance improved. And after that, we were also able to make some other performance optimizations once we better understood PIX, which was great. The other reason we were rejected was friend invites. And that's kind of something I touched on earlier. You have to be able to do inviting friends through the Xbox UI. And then we got rejected a third time. And it was, joining a lobby once a friend is in matchmaking state. And so there was, like I mentioned, there was a lot of different components to that joining system. And then the fourth time was an easy fix, luckily, but it was something to do with the achievements not unlocking. And that was easy. So by the time we got approved, which was around the first weekend of September, we were able to set our pre-order date for the 17th, and then we launched on September 30th. And we were able to use that time to really prepare for launch. Let's talk about some post-launch stuff. So once we launched, we set aside a few Friday streams on Twitch so that we could, kind of show folks, hey, this is the game, this is what we've built. We created a roadmap and published that so that the community can kind of get involved there. We had a few updates that we readied up and pushed those. And we tried to engage as much as we could on Twitter, Instagram, and direct people to our Discord. And marketing. Neither my husband or I, because we're a 2-person studio, have any kind of marketing background. So this is always the most challenging aspect of release for us. For Alpha Link, we mostly just decided to focus on Twitter and do meaningful posts that were more personal in tone. Which basically we've shared a lot of our life story there. And then, we had a pretty low conversion rate there, but we did manage to do a few tweets that gained traction to help with the exposure. and that exposure maybe didn't exactly lead into sales, but it definitely led into some good connections with some nice people. So doing that on Twitter, we were connected with Patrick, who wrote the Vice article about us. We connected with Librina, who nominated me for the Game Stack Ambassador program. Things like that. We ended up connecting with some of the cool people at ID at Xbox that way, and I'll talk more about that later. We also, definitely took advantage of some of the things that ID at Xbox do for us anyways, like posting through Major Nelson. We wrote up a blog post for the Xbox Wired, and they posted that. We published our release trailer and our pre-order trailer through the ID at Xbox YouTube. And then we also were able to be guests on the live stream at the Xbox Twitch channel, which was good exposure for us as well. In addition, we did a few smaller interviews as well. These were more fun for community, but although the live streams doubled as bug hunting streams where we were able to find and squash some of those launch bugs. And, that's always fun, finding bugs in real time in front of an audience. So it's all good. So yeah, we have been slowly building our community. Like I mentioned, doing the streams. We've posted a few updates with new content, a lot of bug fixes that we found in those streams, and community requests that were coming through on the streams. Every Friday night when we were streaming, we would have some great ideas come through. And the really awesome thing about that is that everything's right there in chat. So we were able to go through the chat after each stream and just drop that stuff right into Trello and then convert it into our roadmap, which was really super helpful having all that rather than having to remember it. So one of the few silver linings of, having to move everything online because of the pandemic. Because if that were in person at an event, my brain would be fried. I wouldn't remember any of that stuff. So, but on our roadmap, we had idea submissions. So everyone in the community can submit their ideas for the game if they have a new mode that they want to play, or if they have some ideas for. We had a lot of people, suggesting different control schemes or some matchmaking things. So we took all those. People voted on them. Everyone could add their comments, things like that. And it allowed us to really prioritize what we did next. And so, closing thoughts. I got here fast, I think. This has been our journey. And I feel like every indie development journey is pretty unique, and ours certainly felt chaotic at times. But in the end, seeing folks playing our game and getting helpful feedback from those players has definitely made it all worth it. Yes, we would have done a lot differently. I think we're still trying to figure out the whole marketing aspect of it. We're still working through some new features. We're still pushing updates. And so I feel like we've learned a lot doing our first console launch. Just like we learned a lot when we first launched our mobile game in 2009. So we certainly hope that that we can take this and keep running with it. So where to find us? So I am at She Who Codes on pretty much all social media. You can also go to covagame.com to check out our game. And then on the Indie Game Business Discord server, I am at Mandy7630. So certainly connect with us there and come say hi.
Mandy, there are people that have been doing this for 2 decades and they're still trying to figure out the marketing side of it. So don't stress on that aspect of it at all. Um, that's I don't know if you
Yeah.
caught the talk that we just did with Ahmed and Khalil, but we were talking about how over or understated it is when an indie team actually launches a game and it goes live and it is available for people to purchase, and how that is a gigantic, huge thing that people don't realize. And sometimes the developers don't even appreciate how big a deal that is themselves. So
Yeah.
sheer just merely the fact that you got this out the door, launched, and people can play it, kudos, you won. That's the good news. um so going through it, and it was funny because this echoed a lot of the stuff that we talked about a couple of hours ago too, with testing. And they were saying that they had a bug that only happened when two people on a server in India played their game simultaneously. And it's like,
Wow.
how do you test that when you're a small indie game? You don't have all these resources at your fingertips. So how did
Right.
you all handle testing and handle all the lot checks and the submission checks for Microsoft? Or was it just kind of like, we think we have it, so let's submit it and see if it works?
No, we did before we even submitted to Xbox. We did a lot of testing with family, friends, um, people that had signed up for our betas, and that gave us a lot of feedback. Seeing what they did, because I log everything on Playfab, so everything you're doing in the game, I'm seeing what you're doing in Playfab, which is pretty nice. So we could really get a grasp of what's happening there. Um, a couple of people in our community are really detail oriented, which helped a lot. So when they found a bug, they could totally vocalize it, walk through the steps with me, and I could nail it down just based on the repro steps that they were able to provide. So we did that a lot, and we did that a lot throughout the entire process. We did not wait until the very end to start testing. We tested a lot throughout the whole process with mostly close friends and then the wider audience.
Yeah, for the record, I am not that person in the community that can outline. I know from doing this for a quarter of a century that I need to be able to say, this is exactly what I was doing leading up to the bug, and this is what happened, and this. But it's like, no, it's like, I don't know. I opened the door and it crashed. I don't know where. That's about all you're going to get from me when I'm doing this. All right, so
Right.
just just to play armchair quarterback or Monday morning quarterback or whatever we want to call it, where hindsight is 100%. Why did
Yeah.
you switch from a single player Metroidvania straightforward process to a couch co-op multiplayer game?
Yeah, that's the big question right there. Um, we originally we thought, hey, we'll do this local competitive game. It'll be really fun, just like a game like what was it, Towerfall or Night Squad. Just a quick, fun local game. And we had our first prototype ready in 6 weeks, and that's what we took to Valhalla Lounge in Austin and won that competition with. And so we were like, this is going to be a really quick game to get together and put on Xbox. Little did we know that the pandemic was about to hit. And had we known that, I think we would have stuck with the Metroidvania and we would have pushed through, because that 20 months would have been enough to finish that game. Um, so yeah, hindsight is always 2020.
Well, I mean, that's an open-ended statement. Had we known the pandemic was coming, I mean, a lot of shit would have been different. That'd be
Yeah. Uh-huh.
sorry, Mandy.
So
This
true.
is the joy of being the last talk on the last day after I've been doing this for 2.5 days straight. It's like
No, I get it.
I have no F's left. All right, so I have questions. We covered the Metroidvania, the couch co-op thing. the pandemic was tough on all of us. God, I'm not even going to say was, because I'm not even sure we're out of this shit yet. But the pandemic was bad across the board. And mental health is one of those things that has absolutely been thrust to the forefront. It's like, I don't wish what happened to Simone Biles on anyone, but it almost takes that kind of shit for people to step back and go, okay, this isn't normal. I'm not used to this. And I could personally, I went through this, many years ago, about 10 years ago, and went to counseling. And I was like, it's one of those things that you don't realize that what's going on isn't normal until somebody else looks at you and goes, that shit's not normal. And
Right.
you've got so much stuff that you're going on. You've got, the adoption going on in your personal life. All of a sudden, it's like we're not employed and we have to figure out what we're going to do. And all your local resources get tapped because, nobody can leave their house. On the mental health side, what did you and your husband do to just kind of not go crazy?
We reverted to brewing beer again. No,
Hey,
no,
fair
that's a
enough.
terrible answer.
That's
No,
was it any good? Because when I did that, it didn't turn out so well.
no, it was good. It that stuck for only so long. But yeah, having 48 bottles of beer in the house is not healthy. No, we did a lot. We definitely had some nights where we just needed to let our brains melt in front of some TV for a little bit, to just shut down and recalibrate. My son had a therapist, so talking with her a lot, that helped put things in perspective. We were still working with our social workers as well, so they kept not only encouraging us through the process, but just saying, hey, this is going to be fine. Everything's going to get better, pandemic wise and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to find a healthy vice. And then also, gaming. We did a lot of gaming, just to shut down in the evenings. But yeah, mental health is certainly understated. And, looking back, I feel like we put a lot on ourselves that we shouldn't have. I feel like we would have done a lot differently than to taking on multiple contracts on top of building out this game, on top of understanding how parenting works. But yeah, I think I think the fact that my husband and I have such an open relationship and we can really talk things out. It's like having your own personal, Frasier next to you. So that helps.
Pro tip: nobody knows how parenting works. That's a myth. That's just a buddy of mine explained it to me, and he's got 4 kids, I believe. He said you can read all this stuff, and these experts say this and whatever else. He said, here's what you have to do. It's like a roller coaster. There isn't really that much you can do, so you better just sit down and enjoy the ride and not jump out at any point in time.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a whole lot to go through. And one, I appreciate you sharing this, because I think it is something that we need to talk about in this industry. We do put a lot on ourselves. I mean, I run a consulting firm, and then I still do this stuff, and I have to sit down every now and then and go, I need to just step back. I mean, there's too much going on. I have family. It is a lot, but we are victims of our own passion at a certain point. And that's
so true.
One of the things that everybody struggles with. And it's always, I'm always open to talking to anybody about it, because I've been through it. I've done it, and it's never good. So on a similar note, question from Lucas, and this is another one that every developer out there goes through. Did you ever lose motivation with all of those Xbox rejections, and how did you push through it, and did you get the good feedback and that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, we knew there was end in sight. We knew that, we had come this far. We're not going to let those rejections stop us now. So we were motivated. We were hell bent on getting this game because we saw the finish line. We were just a toe like away from it, you know. So it was a lot of early mornings. My mornings were starting at 5 o'clock so that I could get out here in the office and work through a lot of those online bugs, online features to get through that. Yeah, ID at Xbox, their team that tests everything, they write up really good reports. They give you clear repro steps, and some of the cases I could ask for video or images so that I could better understand those. And they were right there giving me everything that I needed. They want you to get your game out. They have no reason to hold you back. So they're very supportive and they do a lot for you.
So, Subliminal Man says, did you set up any build processes or testing processes to streamline the submissions? A lot of what I ended up doing, unfortunately, was just brute forcing it to get past cert.
Yep, same here. I it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can spend a day setting up this and having it kind of automated for me, or I can just keep pushing through and getting these things done and just push it through to cert every time and then just click that button. So no, it probably would have been smart, but did I want to spend the time on being smart? Probably not.
Well, wow, that takes all the fun out of this. That's
Yeah.
there's no sense in letting a system, get to enjoy your frustration when you can enjoy it yourself. There's
Exactly.
all
Exactly.
right. So, and NeoWare has been with us for the last couple of days, and I appreciate you hanging out and lots of good questions. They say I'm creating my first commercial game after a few game jams, and it's still at least 1 or 2 years before I'll be able to release it. Do you have some advice for first-time developers?
Find anything to make the process quicker. If
Despite
you're
what
like,
she just said.
but yeah, despite that, find services and assets that'll speed up your process. So if you have, like in our case, it was an online multiplayer game. I'm not gonna sit there and build out an Azure server myself. I went and I found a service that was already doing that, and I just integrated it. Same with storing player information. You don't have to create that stuff. There's services out there that do that for you. If you're using Unity, check out the asset store. There's a lot of things that can quickly get you started. Don't think that you have to do every control scheme from scratch. There's services out there that do that for you. You don't have to create your own, if there's a service out there that does it for you, find that service and utilize it if you want to speed up development. Don't try and do everything from scratch. I know there's a pride thing there, but I guess it depends on what you value. Do you value getting your first game out, or do you want to do everything yourself from scratch?
If you want to do everything else
In our
from
case, it's
scratch.
always no.
I mean,
I don't
years
know.
ago,
That takes forever.
yeah, it made somewhat sense to say, okay, look, we're going to make our own engine and we're going to do this,
Yeah.
but today it doesn't, and so it's one of those things that I still see developers and they're like, well, I'm just going to build my own engine, and I'm like, why? I understand
There's a
if you want to do it as a learning exercise, and that's more power to you, go for it.
right.
If you want to create something that's going to make money and be able to allow you to continue to do this without having another job, it's probably not the best route.
Right, exactly. And same with like physics engines. People want to build their own. I'm like, why? There's several out there that are proven. If it's out there, if you want to, get your game out, and you value that over anything else, just use those services.
I mean, you've got a long track record in engineering and coding. I mean, did it ever occur? Did you ever think seriously about it? It's like, I can just do this. I don't need that. I can just make this myself.
Uh, I would want to, just like you mentioned, for the learning experience. Like I love tinkering with new technologies and setting those things up, but no, hard pass. My favorite thing is coding game logic. I love doing it. It's just what's fun to me. So no, hard pass.
I, I can't argue with you. So you mentioned that, I mean, this coming from the guy who the last programming class I had was in Pascal, and I never did get the ball to
Yeah.
like bounce all the way around the room properly, and I just said, the hell with it, I'll be an English major. The you said there were definitely things that you would have changed going back, factoring out the pandemic part of it, because just that's the curveball that no one saw coming. But looking back at the process now, what are some of those things that you would have changed along the way, or that you're already planning for the next iteration to do differently?
Um, well, first off, I think I would have liked to use the Playfab online service for the multiplayer. Um, I think digging into that, even though it would have been new to us because we've always used Photon and Playfab in the past, I definitely would have done that just to use all of Playfab. I think maybe we would have put off launch a little bit longer so that we could get a better marketing campaign going. I think we were so ready and excited to launch that the moment we got approved, we were like, when can we launch? So I think, and they were like, September 17th is the earliest. We're like, we'll take it. Like we're buying a car or something. So yeah, I think we should have picked a better launch date. I think we should have made a better marketing plan. Yeah, those two things certainly.
To be fair, you didn't have a lot of room in there, because if September was
Yeah.
mid-September was the first one you had available. I mean, as an indie, you do not want to launch after October anyway. So you only had
Mm-mm.
about 6 more weeks, and before the next logical one would have been January.
February, or
Well,
maybe
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, after Christmas, the so when you wanted to go and when you were looking at doing a different marketing plan, so what on the marketing side, especially with the social media platforms, were there ones that worked better than others, or was it just kind of like across the board?
Twitter, we definitely had more traction on and had things come out of a lot of those posts. Instagram, I have a pretty large community on there, but it's a different type of community. It's more women in programming and not necessarily folks in gaming. So I think that I didn't get as much traction there. And then nobody uses Facebook, so I don't know.
They do, but it's our parents, and
Yeah.
that's my wife keeps me posted on all the stuff that my family and friends are doing on Facebook, because the only time on Facebook is like right now when we're live and streaming. That's pretty much it for me. This has come up like multiple times over the last couple of days, and I'm completely still shocked by it, and it could be because I'm old. Did you look at TikTok? Because apparently that works.
What's a TikTok? I don't
It's
know.
okay. Thank you. I'm like, what are you doing? Dances or some? We have talked to several people over the last couple of days who had good traction for their game on TikTok.
Yeah, and that's the one that we didn't utilize. And I feel like we've lost out on a lot of traction that we could have had there. And maybe it's something that we utilize in the future. But I am still not on TikTok, which maybe I'm beyond that mark, that age group that should be on there. I don't know.
Nah, me either. So, what would you, if you hadn't launched it and you were building that extra marketing plan, what would you have added to it?
More outreach to large streamers. we actually created these really awesome, I don't know if I have one here in the office with me right now, but we created these boxes, these loot crates that we sent out to a couple of people, and they had customized dog tags with the factions on them. We put stickers on them. We put these cool flasks. I wish I had this stuff right now. I don't know where it might be. But yeah, we put all these really cool loot crates together to send to folks, and some responded, some did not, most did not. And so I think we would have put more time and effort into getting those ready to send out to folks so that more people would be interested in actually, following through with us.
You have to be really careful with that, though, because that's like one of the things that on one hand, yes, we see a lot of publishers and they do that and it gathers some attention, but especially for small teams, you've got it's like doing Kickstarter rewards. You have to be very careful how much you end up spending on that type of stuff versus the benefit that you're going to get from it.
Right.
Lucas, while you're there, Lucas says he got the most views on TikTok for his previous game with barely any strategy. Give us a rundown in chat there of what you actually did on TikTok, because this is the part I'm still very curious about.
Yeah.
In Instagram, someone was talking about it earlier, and it's part of my issue with Instagram either. It doesn't allow you to link out to anybody unless it's that one link in your profile, and that's just not that good for doing wish lists and all that sort of stuff. So is the game on PC or is it just on Xbox right now, or where are you released?
Us personally or Lucas in chat?
No, I'm talking about you. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine. No, because I'm curious about that too. I want to know about this TikTok.
We're all hanging out to learn what Lucas did on TikTok.
Yes, please.
No, so where's the game released right now?
So right now we're just on Xbox, and we have our roadmap that we offered either a soft PC launch or a single player campaign, and most of the votes came through on the single player campaign. So we're kind of working on that more so than the PC version. But we do want to get on Steam, and we do want to get on Windows Store next. And then we've also submitted to be on the Switch. PlayStation's down the road. That's down the road.
Have you had talks about Game Pass and going that route with Microsoft as well?
No, we have not had any doors open to that yet. So we've not had any discussions there.
I was just curious because they said, I saw somewhere in the news yesterday that Microsoft has stopped doing or is doing less announcements when things go to Game Pass, and it's more like they're just being released, which tells me they're going to be upping the volume of this stuff coming out. And
yeah.
Now the Twitter rumor I just heard is that PlayStation's going to launch probably whenever the Game Awards are going to be announced. They're doing something very similar too. So, it's just one of those things. Curious.
It's been successful for Xbox for sure. The Game Pass. I mean, it's such a great service and it's cheap for what you get. So I don't doubt that PlayStation does something for that.
I love my Game Pass. The best value in gaming.
Yes.
And I had another question, and now it completely escaped my brain. Hold on, give me a second. It'll come back to me. Oh, okay. All right. So how many, it's you and your husband, and then how many contractors or outside people other than you all?
So we originally had and that's kind of a touchy subject too. We originally had another artist that would help us out on occasion. But he's not doing that anymore. Basically, when we got laid off, he did not. So he's still at that company. It's a very touchy subject. But yeah, so it's mostly just my husband and I. On occasion, we get help on the programming side for some small tasks, mostly controller stuff right now. But yeah, so Pretty much just the two of us throughout most of the development process.
Did y'all do? You said he's an artist, so when it came to music, all the marketing collateral, all that sort of stuff, it was just the two of you. I mean, community
So
management still just.
yeah, the only thing I will say, some of the music we did contract out to Dav Drellian, and the other person is eluding me right now. But we did have some custom songs made specifically for this. Blake gave them the sound direction on what he wanted, and then they were able to provide that. In the past, for all of our mobile games, we've done everything, including sound effects, music, and everything. But this was a much bigger game, so we did contract out a couple of songs, yeah. But yeah, community, Twitter, all of that stuff we've done all our own. So we're very much DIYers, I think I mentioned earlier. We're control freaks too, I gotta admit, you know.
As long as you don't let it drive you completely mad,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Well, no promises there.
Well, Mandy is on our Discord server. We have, the post-launch stuff. I mean, the post-session chat. Most importantly, Mandy, I appreciate you coming on here and bearing your soul and showing us, telling us all the nitty-gritty behind launching a indie dev self-published console game in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
No biggie, right?
Right. And thanks so much for having me. It's been a good ride.
My pleasure. And if there's anything you ever need in the future, let us know. For everyone else watching, I just dropped our exclusive ticket to the gig tonight in the general chat. So absolutely go hang out. I'll be there a little while later on. Guy has built a fantastic networking community. You hang out, you talk on chat, and it like switches up every few minutes. It's awesome. Mandy, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. And to everybody else, thanks for hanging out for the last 3 days. My brain is shot, but I hope you all learned something. We'll be back. Have a wonderful weekend.